Hello, everyone. You're listening to the Merged Marketing Podcast. Today, we are going to be talking about the art and science of ranking your website on Google to generate organic traffic and revenue. So, without further ado, let's merge into our interview.
You're listening to the Merged Marketing Podcast with David Louch and Jason Hunt. This is a show all about unlocking the marketing tactics and secrets behind everyday brands. Each week, we'll bring you expert commentary so that you can make better choices when it comes to growing your business. Thank you for spending time with us. Now let the show begin.
And we're live. So we just finished our podcast episode with Viola Eva from Flow SEO. And this is our third SEO episode that we've done so far. I don't know, is it too much, too little, not enough?
I don't think enough. But maybe we should show some extra love to some of the other services and topics that we cover in this podcast.
Well, we went like overboard in terms of time with this one, but because there's so much to unpack and unravel with this topic. I mean, originally we had Todd on talking about basics, and then we had Mikkel from Surfer SEO. And then from there, now we're talking to Viola about the science behind it. So it's like, and we were talking we could have went on for another hour in this episode, continuing to talk about, other things that have to do with SEO. But, there are a lot of takeaways for myself in this episode, being an SEO basic, learning a lot behind the data-driven decisions that are made when you run an SEO campaign that I think our listeners are going to get a lot of value out of today.
Absolutely. And really, it's about making decisions overall. So it's not just making decisions when it comes to SEO, but Viola really walks through a 3-step process to what she calls the scientific mindset behind making SEO decisions. But really, this can help you in making any decision for your business about any service that you want to offer, any new marketing strategy that you want to test out. It's a good one. So I think it's going to bring a lot of people some value.
Yeah. And it's interesting to hear her background and what kind of motivated her to get into that space, which is a game that I used to love quite a bit, which was The Sims.
Yeah.
The Sims mindset.
I honestly never played it, but I do like your reference of every time you think of somebody doing something, it's either pluses or minuses or whatever it is, right? Because you get pluses for being a good person and doing nice things, and then you get minuses when you don't.
Yeah, so that's exactly. So when you're having a conversation with somebody and they talk about certain topics that you're interested in, or say a nice compliment, naturally there's this imaginary sort of plus sign above your head, which is growing your relationship. There's a relationship bar where you can see how good your relationship is with somebody, and that continues to increase the more you get plus signs above your head for giving compliments or talking about similar topics of interest. And I fear that if we continue talking here, that we're going to get a lot of minuses from our audience. So we should probably just kick it to the episode. What do you think?
We should. So let's kick it to the episode. We hope you enjoy. And as always, don't forget to rate, subscribe, and let us know what you think of our podcast. We hope you're all staying safe as we are in the midst of the COVID-19 crisis. Today, Jason and I have a very exciting episode lined up for you. Our guest is Viola Eva, founder and CEO, consultant for Flow SEO. Viola is passionate about digital entrepreneurship, flow, and mindful marketing. As a marketing consultant and SEO, she has worked with clients ranging from individual digital entrepreneurs to software companies to multinational corporations and government institutions. She is a speaker, educator, and specialist on all things SEO. Flow SEO is her love child and a thriving mix of digital marketers. You can meet Viola at various conferences around the globe or in their Berlin head office. Viola, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
We are excited to have you today. So, Viola, before we get started into the topic of discussion that I kind of wanted to go into today, I would just love for you to share with our listeners a little bit about yourself. So perhaps where you're from, what you do, and something maybe not many people know about you.
All right. Yeah, I am based in Berlin, Germany. I am German. The last few years, I've been traveling the world and living in all kinds of places. But since last spring, I'm back to Berlin and happily exploring the city and all the craziness that it has to offer. Flow SEO is, as I said, my love child or my baby for the last 1.5 years, which is a boutique agency specialized in search engine optimization. So that is the mysterious word that is SEO. And we help clients rank on Google. And one thing that not many people know about me is actually one person once told me at a conference that the reasons why I'm probably good with managing projects and clients and the many parts of an SEO campaign is because I used to play the computer game The Sims religiously. And I never thought that anything good can come from that. But then I was told that that's maybe the reason why I'm good organizing stuff on a computer and, remote work and all those things. And then I stayed with that hypothesis for a while. And then turns out that some other people running remote digital marketing agency told me the same, that they think this skill set comes from online gaming as a teenager. So here we go. Voting for online gaming turned entrepreneur and knows how to organize a team online.
That's awesome, Viola, and because I grew up on The Sims as well.
Beautiful.
I don't know. I grew up. I used to have The Sims, the one where it was like Sim City, where you pick like the industrial areas with the eye, and you just like map out your entire city, and then that evolved. And I seriously think that all relationships, that aspect of the relationship building in The Sims, is so it's so realistic. It really is, because if you're talking to somebody you rarely know and they say something that throws you right off, I think in my head minus.
I love that. I love that. And one thing though is like The Sims or also SimCity is very much a single player. And then I never really was into online gaming, like the multiplayer stuff. World of Warcraft was huge and all those things. But I do think this idea of like cooperating with people across time zones, to be on time, to kill a certain massive evil lord, that you need to have 5 people come in and bring all their gadgets. It is a bit like the digital marketing game works.
Interesting. So you're a bit of a Sims nerd, which is totally cool. So do you still play today?
Good question, because I still had The Sims 2 on my old computer, because you could download it from the App Store a couple of years ago pretty much for free. And I was actually thinking to pull it up now during the Corona crisis and spending my time at home. But then I decided it's probably not the best use of my time starting with gaming again. So it didn't happen.
Fair enough. Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing a little bit about yourself, Viola. So you and I had a brief conversation last week, and as you know, what really caught my attention about you and what you do, and what I would like to spend much of our time talking about today is what is and how you apply a scientific mindset when making data-driven decisions about SEO. So I guess the first kind of logical place to start, and it's funny because this is a digital marketing and business podcast that we have, but you're our third person in episode that is on the topic of SEO. So this is probably the topic that we've discussed the most in various different ways, none of which have overlapped, which is kind of cool. And it just, I think for the listeners out there, goes to show you how important SEO is when you have a website or when you have an online business or whatever it might be. Because if your website isn't optimized, then your business isn't going to be optimized. So I think the logical place to start is, would you say that SEO is an art or a science?
Well, I don't think I have it on my website anymore, but I used to have like a Venn diagram with 2 circles, and one of them said art and one of them said science. And then in the middle, it would overlap and it would say flow. And I do think SEO and digital marketing in general, I do think it's a combination of both. And the reason why I think that is because there is an intuition, there is a gut feeling, there's a certain knowledge and expertise that comes from looking at many websites, looking at many campaigns, looking at the different challenges and obstacles. And you do get kind of like an intuition for it. And I'm sure it's the same for Facebook ads as well. Like you look at a certain client at a certain setup and you have an idea, you have a hunch on what could be working. So there is this creative so problem solving, creative solution finding that is more art, more playful, more intuitive. And then on the other hand, with the quality of SEO tools we have right now, or the quality of data analysis that we can do in digital marketing in general, we can be very scientific and we can back up our intuition with how many people are looking for that, how competitive is this really going to be, how many links do I need. And I think that intersection is where it becomes really, really powerful. And not leveraging data and not leveraging the tools and the information they provide us, I think you're just leaving a lot of opportunity on the table. And I suppose just following your gut is probably not enough, but it can set you on a path of discovery that you then back up with data.
You use the term intuition, and I love it because, it's funny how us in the digital marketing space, we really do take it for granted. The fact that our natural default is problem solving with whatever, specific, niche we're in, whether it's SEO
Right.
or social advertising. Because it is, when you're living in the space 40 to 60 hours a week, and that's all you think is problem solving for SEO or social, it's pretty powerful. And it's something that, I think at times you don't even realize it, but we just take it for granted because it's our default.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose the reason why I started talking so much about the scientific mindsets, and not just me, there's an entire community of digital marketers and SEOs talking about this and being interested in this, is because the time for kind of like one size fits all advice seems to be over. Like this idea, just do that one thing and you're going to be fine. That's not really happening anymore. Google is way too sophisticated. Facebook is way too sophisticated. So as the landscape gets more complex, like I said, I do think our intuition gives us a general direction, but then we can basically fine tune it and tinker with the data to make really smart decisions.
Okay, so it's a little bit of both. It sounds like art and
Right.
science, which it's the case for Facebook advertising as well. I know Jason and I have kind of referred to it as that before, the art and the science of a Facebook post, for
Absolutely.
example. And I guess kind of leading into the next question, because one of the things on your website that you cite that you apply to your work is a scientific mindset to always make data-driven decisions. So we've talked a little bit about it so far, but I would like to know, because you said it's not just you. There's a movement. There's a lot of digital marketers or SEOs out there that believe in this scientific mindset. But what does a
Right.
scientific mindset mean to you?
Right. So the idea is, or the scientific process, generally speaking, is right. We find a hypothesis about a certain, we have an idea how something could look like. We have a hunch how something might be working, and we're trying to form a hypothesis. What is it that we're trying to look at? What are we trying to achieve? What are we trying to test? And we form that as step one. And then kind of like that. With that then comes, okay, now we need to figure out how can I validate or not validate this hypothesis? What kind of data, qualitative or quantitative, do I need to collect in order to know if my hypothesis is true? And with digital marketing, we are lucky that we have so much data available about how users behave, how they interact, what they're looking for, what they like, etc. So we can figure out, okay, based on a thing that we're trying to understand, what is the appropriate metrics that we should be looking at? And then ideally, you want to run a test. And again, I think with Facebook ads, it's very common, to run very different ads with a ton of creatives and different messaging and see which one works best. And in SEO, it's a little bit like the episode that you had with Michael from Surfer SEO, where he says there's no one strategy for every keyword. There needs to be keyword-specific strategies, and you need to figure out how you can optimize and test for that specific keyword and then get it right. So basically, create the hypothesis, figure out what kind of data do we need, what kind of metrics do I need to measure, and then actually do the test. And I think that's where the beauty is, because instead of, believing someone that you should be writing a blog post that is 1,000 word long, or believing someone that you should be putting your keyword into the content, etc., you can now be very strict with yourself and say like, okay, I want to have a try. I want to see if this works, and I'm going to implement something, and I'm going to see if it works, and then move on from there, instead of just reading someone else's advice, someone else's blog post or guidance, and just taking it for granted.
I with SEO is something obviously I don't have a huge amount of knowledge on, very basic high level type of stuff. And I think a lot of our listeners might be in that same type of a boat or same type of boat. But, after you saying that, Viola, it kind of seems like it's almost like sometimes SEO is like shooting, a gun at a target in the dark, or you're blindfolded. And, the more experienced you are, the more closer you are to that board to hitting the target.
I mean, I think there's always this theory of you're throwing a bunch of spaghettis against the wall and you're seeing which one sticks. Now, I tell you something with SEO, it's weird. Like, you can do keyword research and you can figure out these are the 5 topics or blog posts I should be writing, because many people are looking for this. And then they have a low difficulty, so I should be able to rank. And you're going to write those 5 blog posts and you're going to realize one of them is doing really well, ranking really fast, getting a lot of traction. 2 of them are kind of doing medium, maybe page 2, 3, 4, and 2 of them are not moving. So even though, you looked at this and then you get a sense like, okay, apparently Google seems to think I'm relevant and authoritative for that specific topic, and maybe I should work on that more and do more. And often what happens is that people put up 5 blog posts, one of them starts ranking, and then they kind of feel the urge to keep moving on the topics that didn't show any reaction. They're like frustrated. I'm like, oh, this is not ranking. I should make it work. But realistically, you want to work with the keywords and topics and blog posts where Google is reaching their hand, where Google is showing interest, and then you want to improve upon them. So if your hypothesis is, Google is going to be equally interested or find me equally relevant for these 5 topics, and then you might realize it's only topic A where you really have authority and relevance in Google eyes, and you can, cross-check your belief and then build your content strategy from there.
Great. So basically what we've kind of gone over is your process to having a scientific mindset to your SEO. And that more or less consists of 3 things. That's creating the right hypothesis, finding the right data, and then setting up a test to see if that hypothesis is going to be correct.
Right. And there's different level of SEO testing. There's some guys who get like super, very, very nerdy and very scientific about it. There's some people like Kyle Roof or Ted Kubitis, and they do I want to say proper tests, in a sense that they will put up 5 or 6 test websites and then, tweak certain ranking factors on one of them, see which one changes. What I mean by test is not necessarily, getting lost in the details as much. What I mean by that is, more the kind of lean startup, build, measure, learn, like put something into place, put something forward on your website. I do believe, for example, adding your keyword to the URL in headline 1, that's generally a good idea. But what that means for you as someone who has a website and who wants to do something is like, okay, so I heard Viola say in the podcast, I should put my keyword in the headline 1 and, for example, URL and page title. Okay, I don't know how to change URLs, so I'm not going to mess with that. But I do know how to change my headline 1 and my page title. Okay, so Viola said this is going to change my rankings. These are the 20 pages that I'm changing this on. And then, I'm going to look at what happened in a week, what happened in 2 weeks, and what happened in 3 weeks. So you don't have to have a laboratory of SEO tests. But what I want you to do is figure out what is actionable about an advice that an expert is giving you, what's the hypothesis, and then just take a bunch of pages on your website, make it happen, and see what worked and see what didn't work.
Yeah, this is good. I mean, our audience for the most part is going to be, business owners and marketers that aren't super nerdy with SEO. And so I would really love to maybe go through a real world example of these three processes in action, maybe something that you helped a client with recently or that you advise someone to kind of do on their own. So like, what was the hypothesis? How did they find the data? What was the right data to find? And then the setup and the test and the result. Is there a way for you to maybe go through something with us?
Yeah, definitely. So let's say I think maybe so there's generally there's three parts of SEO, right? There's the technical side of things, there's the content side of things, and there's the backlink side of things. So probably content and backlinks are the two more intuitive for people. So let's talk about that for a moment. So for example, if you have a website and you have 3 or 4 main topics that you're talking about, let's say you're a fitness website and you talk about body weight training or functional training, you talk about the right nutrition that goes, to build muscles or to lose fat. And then maybe you have a part about relaxation and stretching and meditation or something like that. Mm-hmm. So then maybe your hypothesis is like, I want to build out the stretching part of that website and I want to see if that works. Or I believe that adding a part of the website talking about supplements would be useful. Or my hypothesis is adding a part about sports equipment would be useful. So you're trying to get very clear on that. And then definitely from there, I would go, okay, so what are the things that I want to know? When we talk about SEO, definitely what I want to know is, do I already have some pages about this? Do they have organic traffic? Do they already have keyword rankings? So I'd probably use a tool like SEMrush or Ahrefs to get keyword ranking data. And then you can use Google Analytics to kind of see if you already have some traffic in those parts of the website and any traction there. If you don't want to use any SEO tool, you can also use Google Search Console. That will give you some data on keywords that you're already ranking for. Mm-hmm. So those are the first things I would be looking at. And then from there, I would brainstorm some topic ideas and then definitely look at search volume and keyword difficulty, which is probably like the standard SEO process. And then what a lot of people now do is actually very closely observing page 1. And then you can go from, I need to be writing 5 articles about stretching. You can go, okay, I need one top of the funnel article with 5,000 words. I need 2 kind of like middle of the funnel stretching exercises type articles with a lot of images and about 1,800 words. And basically from learning what's currently on page 1, what type of content, what content length, what content elements, you can create an outline. And that's your hypothesis is, okay, if I put together those 5 pages, I have a chance of being successful based on the things that I'll be looking at. And then for SEO, the thing is you have to have a bit of patience, but probably some timeframes I would be looking at is what happens a week after I published some posts, what happens about 3 or 4 weeks after, and then probably maybe like a couple of months after. So again, this is a bit different from maybe what social or paid ads would be like, where you can know much faster. Maybe after a week, you already have an idea if a campaign is working or not. You have to give it some time and aging, etc. Is going to be one of the factors that will improve your rankings.
I think that's always been the key with SEO is deploying that patience. Because Viola, what I was going to ask is like, at what point in time because you put a lot of resources into, for example, the stretching example, I think is a great one. You're deploying a lot of resources on those top of funnel, mid of funnel, bottom of funnel, content or blog posts. So it's like, at what point do you be like, okay, enough is enough. I need to pivot and then I need to work on, dumbbell or bicep exercises. At what point do you make that decision when it's not worth the time invested into a certain topic?
Right. So I tell you something. If you wanted to go very minimal viable product on this, I always say people, a page is better than no page. And what I mean by that, you're sometimes better off putting an article that you're maybe, let's say 70%, 80% satisfied with already live and having it live there and sit there for a while over obsessing and getting it 100% perfect and then just publishing it 4 weeks later. So there's always iterations that you can do. And then if you wanted to get really lean, you can actually get together a very short kind of like intro paragraph, a few headlines, kind of like ghost article, publish that. And you can probably already see if some of them are getting traction and some of them are not getting traction. And like before people go crazy about this, what I mean by that is you can probably do this with a handful. Don't try to create an entire website like that. But you can probably do that with a handful of topic ideas, like get a very simple, small post up, see if any of them even react. and then build out those that do. Generally, the idea is always build out those that do. And the question, when do you should give up? I suppose it depends on the flexibility of your business and your business model. There's probably some keywords that you don't want to give up on because they're super crucial for what you're doing. If you realize, I have online courses on fitness and I could be talking about stretching, but I could also just, be talking, about yin yoga. And for some reason, I'm ranking super well for yin yoga, even though it's kind of stretching, but Google seems to love my yin yoga stuff way more than stretching. I would start giving up on the stretching as soon as I can see that the return on investment for content in other areas of the business is much more profitable. Right?
Got it. Is there like, would you have a handful of topics you would be focusing on at one time? Is there a set limit in your strategy onto how many topics you're going to allocate your resources and time to?
Good question. Actually, we with David, we talked a moment about this last week, is the difference between effectiveness and efficiency. So I'm always a fan of impact and value and effectiveness, and I'm not so much a fan of, figuring out that one thing that I can do to do an process the most efficient, because they always say, like, even if the process is super efficient, if it doesn't have any impact, you just optimize a thing that's not very fruitful. All that to say, I like, and maybe it goes with that, I really like iterations and everything lean startup. Like with my clients, I work with the OKR framework, objective and key results. So normally I try to have like 1 or 2, maybe 3 main areas per quarter that we're working on, with a certain set of main pages that we want to be ranking for those keywords. And then there comes a certain set of supporting articles, blog content, etc., that goes with that. And then basically see how that works and see what reacts. And then maybe in the next quarter, it's worthwhile to continue working on them. But yeah, normally I try to narrow it down and have like certain topics that we focus on.
So, Jason, did you have a follow-up to that?
No, that's it's just interesting getting a different kind of perspective. I mean, in the digital marketing space, there are a lot of similarities across the board, but like Viola had mentioned, it's a little different on Facebook. And when you're doing Facebook ads, because you go through that learning phase and you have a pretty good idea relatively quickly as to what works and what doesn't. But like we said, you just have to deploy more patience on the SEO side.
But would you not think that it's kind of different in the sense that also with Facebook ads, in the beginning, you're probably casting a wider net and you're trying different things and different target audience, different messaging. And once you have an idea on what's converting and working, then you're trying to hone in on that and improve that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it's also being a little more proactive as opposed to reactive to somebody typing something into a search, right? It's right. A lot of it, like some businesses are not cut out for Facebook ads. They really are not, unless you're doing some retargeting based off people that are hitting the page off of the organic search, right? So it's a matter of maybe, leveraging Facebook for that brand awareness aspect to show them or enlighten them with something they didn't know about, to incentivize them to visit the website. Whereas a lot of times on the SEO side, it's a direct response to somebody typing that need or want into that search bar, right?
Yeah, and look, not every business is great for SEO either. So a classic example is a lot of businesses that do really well on Instagram and Facebook because they have very visual content might not be great for SEO. So for example, if you take fashion, obviously if you're a big online store and you have, Adidas sneakers, etc., then maybe people type in Adidas sneakers women and looking to find, a website to buy from. But even then, it's probably very competitive, and there's going to be a lot of like big brands and retailers there fighting for that. But think about your small fashion kind of like label, more creative, more designer-like. It's very unlikely that someone typing in black dress into Google then somehow finds you and purchases the dress from you. It's much more likely that they see a beautiful video on Instagram. They're like, oh my God, this is how I want to look like. This is what I need. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So not every business necessarily cut out for SEO also. And again, so to take it back from this, should I be testing keywords, etc., this idea of, hypothesis, data, test, or build, measure, learn, or what's really effective goes, broader than one specific channel, because it's also this question, like, what is the marketing channel that I should really invest in? Should it be Instagram ads, Facebook ads? Should it be, organic, social, Pinterest, Google? So that's also an hypothesis. So in Google, we can also, for example, see what is the search volume, and we can already get a sense whether it's worthwhile investing into Google. But we can also have a play with like social ads and see whether it's worthwhile to be on Facebook or Instagram. And that's a hypothesis in itself. Where's my target audience? Which is the channel for them? Should I be on Reddit? Should I be on Quora, etc.? So here you can apply the same logic and you can say, okay, there's a certain amount of time and budget I'm putting towards the 2 or 3 channels that I think are most likely to be converting, and then test that and then see there's maybe 1 or 2 winners that you want to build out first. And that's not to say that later in time you might want to add more marketing channels to the mix, but maybe there's 1 or 2 that initially, when you're looking for traction, when you're looking for return on investment, they're more cut out to be that.
Mm. Yeah, definitely. And that's a great takeaway, I think, for all of the listeners today, is that this whole process, this scientific mindset or method that we've been talking about so far, the hypothesis, finding the data, and then setting up a test, this is not just something that you can apply to SEO. This is something that you can apply to all areas of decision making in your business, but especially with marketing, because very rarely, are you going to find the silver bullet, right? You're going to need to test different methods, different target audiences, different channels before you find something that really works.
And that's the beauty of digital marketing, right? That at least in theory, if we have our analytics set up properly, if we have conversion tracking, etc., we do now understand where people are coming from, what kind of people are spending how much, which parts of the website, etc. So I think we should really leverage that.
And now a word from our sponsors.
This week's episode is brought to you by Casio. Casio is a digital marketing agency that specializes in SEO for businesses across North America. Their custom campaigns are created with one goal in mind: driving traffic to your website to grow your business through lasting results you can easily measure. To get your free SEO audit today, head on over to Casio, that's CASEO.ca, and fill out the form. I want to go back to something that you mentioned earlier just for a second, because staying on the example of fitness, you said earlier, how do you like observing page 1? So if somebody wants to rank for something like, functional fitness or whatever it might be, I think your advice was go to page 1 and observe what is there. And
right.
what I'm wondering is, if someone's listening and wants to rank for functional workouts or whatever it might be, is they're going onto Google and they're searching the keywords that they want to rank for. What are they looking for on page 1? Are they going into these websites and what are they looking for? The topics that they're talking about?
So this again is another stage of you gathering data, because saying, okay, functional fitness, I should be writing a blog post. That's a hypothesis, because you might go on page 1 and you might see that there's 4 Google ads on the top, which really, especially on mobile, push down the organic a lot. So there's one learning there already, which is you might want to spend on Google ad for that keyword, or at least complementary also spend on Google ad for that keyword, because being a blog post, might not be the only thing, or might not be the ideal thing, because the ads are pushing the blog post down. Or you might be going there and you will see, there's a bunch of images and YouTube videos ranking, etc. And it should at least be your consideration whether writing content is the right choice then, and whether you might not want to look at video or images, etc. So I think that's the first thing that we're trying to understand is, what type of content should I be writing? Is my idea that I should be writing a blog post really the right idea? And then once we see, okay, it seems reasonable to be writing a blog post, maybe also from looking at a tool like Ahrefs that can also tell you like click data. It doesn't just tell you search volume. It also shows how likely it is that someone actually clicks on an organic result. So then you can have like proper data saying like, okay, this does not only have great monthly searches, this also has great clicks. So probably I should be writing a blog post. And then from there, it's really like what type of blog post or what type of page should I be creating? And by the way, I use the word blog post and page kind of interchangeably because the main difference between the two is that the blog post has a date, but both of them have like equal opportunity to rank. So let's say, okay, you figured out you want to be writing a content piece. And then the next thing is like, what type of content piece should I be writing? And a classic example is that often, so example, when people are like, what's a good like fitness equipment, like best yoga mat or that kind of stuff. Like often what people want is they want their sales page to rank. They're like, this is a product keyword or a buy yoga mat. They're like, my sales page should be ranking for that. Or my e-commerce category where all the yoga mats are listed should be ranking for that. That's what we want. That's our hypothesis. I should be ranking my sales page or category page for buy yoga mat. But then if you go on Google, and what you actually find is that page 1 is full of review and comparison posts and long form educational articles of other people reviewing mats. You're going to realize it's going to be really hard for your sales page to rank because that's not what Google wants to see. Google wants to see a review and comparison post and a long form article and not a short, on-point sales page for that. And this is where your hypothesis that I should be ranking best, buy best yoga mat on my sales page goes out of the window. And so now we figured out content type and then also like page type. And then you realize, okay, probably I should be writing some sort of like long form blog post as well. And then you can get inspired and see what are people actually covering. And tools like Surf SEO or Page Optimizer Pro, for example, give you the metrics in terms of like word count and keywords and topics to use. So you literally just type your keyword into one of those tools and it returns to you an analysis of page 1 and tells you what you should be doing. But then you will realize that in terms of like yoga, you should probably be writing an article about things to consider when buying a yoga mat. And then you list the factors like, I don't know, how slippery it is or how long it should be or how heavy. And then you write about that. And you can see that your initial idea of, I wanted to write my sales page got completely falsified and replaced by I'm writing this tip purchase guide blog post now. And then you put it up and then you see if you can be successful with that and you see if you get some traction and ranking success.
So essentially, you're giving up on the keyword best yoga mat and just thinking outside of the box and finding some of those lower hanging fruit keywords and building out the content base for that, right?
I wouldn't be so sure about that. It's I probably have to type this into Google now, but I'm almost positive that if you type best yoga mat, you're gonna find review and comparison posts and not sales pages.
Yeah. Right. So essentially it's like, this isn't even worth it because we're competing with all these other review sites, which are getting the priority from Google. So
it means, so for example, if I type it here, and this is not super clean because I'm looking from Germany, right? So the first one is like 8 best yoga mats, etc. And it just tells you that your hypothesis is, this is a transactional keyword. I want to rank my e-commerce sales page, my shop category for that. It's just not going to work. And I need to do an educational content piece. And then maybe you're like, okay, if that's the case, and I realize this is so hard to rank and this is a lot harder than expected, then I might branch out and I say, okay, maybe the strategy of ranking for best yoga mat wasn't great to begin with. I falsify this idea and I'm moving on to saying, okay, I write about, like yoga tips for, or different asanas or, breath techniques, etc., where the people are not so SEO savvy and you have a better chance of ranking.
Awesome.
Okay. So now that we've kind of figured out what we're doing and how we're going about choosing our words and running an appropriate test, you mentioned earlier measuring ROI of a topic. So how do we measure our ROI on a specific topic that we've chosen? Is it in dollars and cents or is it in terms of traffic?
This is a very good question. So what I feel responsible for as an SEO company is making sure that when people type in relevant things that you appear, that they choose to click you, and then ideally that we have a very clear idea on what's the conversion for that page. Is that a sign up? Is that a download? Is that a white paper? I wouldn't probably, as an SEO company, not always. I mean, if it's a very clear cut, there's certain products that can be bought from the website, then yeah, I would do organic revenue. So for example, in e-commerce, and for an e-commerce store, I would do something like organic revenue. But for other businesses where it's more about lead gen or something like that, I would probably say rankings, organic traffic, and then organic conversion. And then that organic conversion, we have to talk about what that means, whether that's freemium sign up or white paper download, etc. But when there's like further more steps down the funnel with like email marketing, etc., I have to see that at some point, I'll think my responsibility stops at the organic conversion. And then, yeah, online courses, e-commerce, that sort of thing, you can have, revenue off organic traffic as one of the metrics that you want to be looking at.
So I think, just having going through this scientific method and scientific mindset to SEO as an example makes a whole lot of sense. And I think it is a really good way to test and ultimately come up with the right words and the right content that you're gonna write. But this is not how it's being done across the board. Not everybody, I guess, believes in or is following this scientific method or mindset. So what's the alternative? Like, what are other maybe companies or gurus out there pushing in comparison to this? Like, why? I think that this seems like it would be a lot more work involved in coming up with different hypotheses, finding data, and then testing it. Whereas you mentioned gurus a little bit earlier that the one size fits all approach maybe isn't working as well as it used to. But my assumption is that people are probably still pushing those one size fits all things. So what's the alternative today to this, or is there one?
So one of the guys that I mentioned earlier, Ted Kubitis, he has a very funny quote. It's kind of nerdy as well, but I think it's hilarious. He says, 1,000 words and an optimized headline 1 is certainly the right advice for a keyword, most likely not for your keyword. So what I mean by that, I do think best case practices and gurus' advice are valid in the sense that they make our life easy, they make it easy to create SOPs, and they also make it easy to ship something. So again, I think it's better to write a 1,000 word article and publish it than never publish an article. So I'm always for pushing something first and getting an MVP out of the door, and maybe follow a best practice to begin with, and then iterate from there and improve from there and, get more granular. But I think with Google getting more sophisticated in understanding search intent and what people are looking for and the different needs that certain queries have and the different kinds of elements and content length and things that people would like to see, it's just not true anymore that you can just write 1,000 words for every blog post or 800 words for every blog post, or put your keyword only into the headline once and that's the end of it. It got more sophisticated in that sense. If you want to be ranking well today, which means yes, you should probably start, with a general advice and a best practice, and then reiterate and improve from there. Because if you're putting out no matter what keyword, no matter what topic, no matter what thing you're trying to rank for, and you're always putting up 800 words, it's not going to do the trick today. And I think this is where we have to be a bit more creative and a bit more playful. And then on the other hand, content production and good content production is quite time intensive and pricey. And sometimes it's really worthwhile spending that extra time of research in the beginning to know that you're creating something with the best chance. We still don't know, right? This is the mentality of testing and seeing like, hey, I'm putting this up there and I want to see how it reacts. And then depending on how it reacts, I'm going to improve it or change it and reiterate. But with the price of content production and good content production, I think it's really worthwhile spending the extra time doing the analysis and then going in with our best bet and our best chance of ranking. And I think that's the best difference in how SEO used to work, because you could be writing even a few years ago for every single variation, every single long tail keyword. You could just put up a 500 word blog post and then put up 40 blog posts a month, which are all kind of similar and all kind of spun, and you put them up and you see some of them start ranking. And I think it's also an opportunity. If you spend more time researching, if you have a higher chance of ranking maybe from the beginning, it's an opportunity to create something less spammy, more interesting, more valuable, more on point. So I do think it just makes sense. Users are getting more sophisticated. Google is getting more sophisticated. We're getting more hang of search engines, even as a general public. And I think we just have to step up our game as digital marketers to still be relevant.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. And it comes down to that want versus need, because obviously, and we see this all the time, when you're prepping for a campaign, somebody might want to push out or create a piece of video content and on the SEO side, a piece of blog content about something that they want to talk about, but it's not what they need to be talking about. Mm-hmm. And that's the key.
Yeah, I think so. Holistic SEO success today is definitely, it's a combination. It's what you want to talk about for sure, because that matters. These are the things that the company vision or values, or that the company is passionate about and that they do want to talk about. But I do think you have to combine it, with the data of what people are searching for, because otherwise you're one of those content producers that keeps writing for topics that never being searched for, and then you can never rank because no one is looking for this. And then thirdly, take into consideration what Google would like to see. And sometimes content creators can get a little bit upset when I say take into consideration what Google would like to see. But you have to understand it's Google's job to find the most relevant answer to a search query. So what Google is trying to estimate is what is the intent of a user, what would a user like to see. And I'm not saying they're perfect at that and they never rank spam or old or inadequate content. Of course they do. But it's their objective to find the most relevant answer to a search query. So attaining to Google's needs in many ways, it's also attaining to what users want and what Google knows that users want.
Yeah, and that on that note of holistic SEO, I think that's a great segue into essentially the last question that I have, and that is, what are your thoughts on the future of SEO? What is the future of SEO? Because as Google just basically tries to figure out what we want or what we're trying to find for us, there's been a few articles and things that I've read and listened to that essentially that's making it harder to do SEO, because when I type in something like social media in Google, so much comes up before the organic rankings or the ads. Like it's telling me the definition of what social media is, or it's trying to send me to certain articles about SEO. And then, probably halfway down the page, you find the ads and the rankings. So what are your thoughts on the future?
Okay, I have two thoughts on this. Firstly, my uncle used to be an economist, and very traditional in the sense that he was in controlling for corporate. And so even though it's a very mathematical, analytical job, he used to have a crystal ball on his desk. And then when people would asking about the future, he would refer them to the crystal ball. So the funny thing is, I actually have a crystal ball sitting here on my desk as a memory to that family tradition. So that's the first thing about forecasting the future. But I tell you something, I think SEOs, and with that also like PPC specialists, Google Ads specialists, like firstly, I think we should be cooperating, because for example, having the paid ads on the top, I have a list in my keyword research where it says SERP features, and then if it says paid ads on the top, we mark them and tell them like, hey, you should consider running ads to this. And then probably if there's a lot of YouTube videos on the top, you want to talk with your social people and see if you can produce some YouTube. So firstly, I think cooperation between the different disciplines, between PPC, between search, between social is really crucial if we want to have a holistic strategy. And then the other thing is, I think the goal and objective as a search marketer is to win real estate on page one. And winning real estate on page one might not always be organic position one. It might also be, an image, a map pack, a video, a featured snippet, which is taking a lot of clicks. That's the little definition that often comes up on the top. So I think shifting that mindset from my only goal is to win organic position one, no matter, how page one looks like, to my goal is to win as much real estate on page one as I can, by strengthening, our entire brand and entity and working with different media and content elements with different departments of my company. That's where I see it heading in terms of job position and responsibility as a search marketer. We want to win real estate on page one.
That's great. Jay, any final comments?
Man, we unpacked a lot today, and we could probably talk to Viola for another hour, but I don't know if our listeners would tune in for 2 hours.
No, fair enough. So thank you so much for your time today, Viola. It was a really great talk. I know I was super excited to dive into this scientific mindset, and I think it's something you can apply to so much more than just SEO.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. And, for those that I guess that are listening today that, found what you said to be super intriguing, what's the best way that people can get in touch with you?
Right. So my website is flow-seo.com. So this is where you can find a lot of my blog posts, my videos, and all these things. And also you can find me on LinkedIn as Viola Eva. So that's probably the two best options. And yeah, I think the thing with data-driven mindset or scientific mindset is just, check your hypothesis and see if it's really true, and see if the things you believe to be making an impact really make an impact, and leverage the data you have at hand.
Love it. Okay. So now for the fun part, we finish every single episode with the same question. And that is, if you could choose one person, dead or alive, to represent your brand, who would it be and why?
Oh, wow. To be so kind of like a brand advocate, or whom would I like to have on my side?
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So I have a DJ that I really love. Her name is Closy. She's a French woman, and she's been kind of like storming the dance floors with a mix of kind of like electronic, yogi, world music tunes. And I really love her career. And if she would like to, come on board and play some of her tunes to some of my videos, or do a thing together, that would be absolutely phenomenal. And I can highly recommend to check her out.
That would be a cool presentation, though, if you were taking the stage and had like a DJ spinning tracks like between slides. That could be super.
That would be amazing. I created a little trailer for myself, and then, that's the kind of thing where I think this should have like a really phenomenal tune.
Awesome.
I love it. Well, that is great. That's a great way to end up. And thank you again, Viola. We appreciate your time, and we'll talk to you soon.
Perfect. Thank you both. And thank you everyone for listening.